So, hello, Gift. Thank you for coming
Hi.
to this platform. Thank you for honoring the invite. And I'm glad to have you as the pioneer interviewee on this platform, the Diary of a Scholar. So I will just talk about Gift in a short, give a short introduction to Gift, and then she would start answering the questions we want to have answered today. So Gifts, as I have posted on the status, is Gift is a PhD candidate in German studies at Stanford University. Oh my God. With a minor in political science, her research examines autobiographical narratives of African migrants in Germany in comparison to the US debates. As a student fellow at the Hoover Institution, she studies Africa's demography and migration. She previously worked with the Africa Progress Group and UNESCO, linking scholarship and policy to advance education and youth development in Africa. Man, this is such a huge profile. I think Gift is even much more than what we have just read. Man, I just totally love your profile. And I think Gift, you are really an inspiration, even way back from school days, and we are super proud of what you have done so far. And then this is a great opportunity to have you share your story with the world, with the upcoming people in academia, and then upcoming German students and language people in modern languages generally. So my first question to you, Gift, will be, tell us, how did you what's your motivation to even study, to go into German studies in the first place? I mean, what's your motivation for that?
Well, I had zero motivation to study German for my bachelor's degree, like so many of us in German studies. I took French in secondary school and I was performing poorly, but I was like still one of the best French students in secondary school. And I remember one day very vividly, my French teacher, he's late now, so may he still rest in perfect peace. He was saying, "Oh, you don't even know you might end up studying like a language you might end up studying French or something like that in the university." And I was like, God forbid, why would I go to university to study language? That was like I can never forget that reaction because it was like he was prophesying into my life and he's late now, so I wish I was able to finally tell him, do you know what, I actually went to school to study German. So of course I like the same stories. I didn't like get to the cutoff mark to study communications that I wanted to study, and then I ended up with German. Yeah. And I remember the first day I was filling in the big folder that we have um at the undergrad advisor's office, and then she said you have to write kind of your proposed future like endeavor or occupation or something. And I just wrote ambassador, like all of us did. But then I think it was at that point that something clicked in my head that wait, this could be useful for me. But
Hmm.
somewhere in my mind, I still that was strongly going to change my course back to communications. So
Hmm.
what happened was I very well in my first year, and I had just completely taken the thought of changing my course to communications out of my mind. My mom still kind of remembered I was going to do that, so she asked me about it, and I was like, "No, I'm just going to stay here," and that was it.
Hmm.
And then I formed like friendship, very good friendships in the department. I had very good scores. And then I learned about the possibilities of like traveling to Germany as someone from like a middle class family in Nigeria. I know I couldn't afford to go to Germany on my own. So that
Yeah.
was strong decision for me to leave the country. And then just as it progressed, I just finally was able to fully understand what I could do with just learning a language. But of course, in at the University of Ibadan, you don't just learn a language, you learn history, culture, and so many politics and so many other things.
Yeah.
So I saw how I could like kind of still introduce my aspirations into my current course, and that was kind of the motivating factor along the line.
Yeah, actually, you also already mentioned other things that could also motivate most of our listeners. And then actually that was also similar to my own story. But we'll focus on gifts today. But thank you so much. That,
Yeah.
that was really awesome. Now the next thing, although you touched on my next question, which would have been maybe specific um, highlights of your journey at the beginning before you started studying or while you were studying, and then you already mentioned that. So I would not. I want us to focus on what you currently do right now. Now, so it's a bit similar to the previous question, but I want you, but it's not directly about motivation. It is about research. So how did you
Yeah.
find research? Like, one of the things I experienced in grad school was like, man, research was different. On another hand, I found that the research
Mm.
was just, for me, research has always been in me or in us. I think it's that silent thought in your head that's speaking somewhere in your mind, and then you're not paying attention to it. And so I would want you to share your experience about research. How did you come into it? And then how come you became this good at research that you ended up in Stanford?
Very good question. So I did my master's at the University of Alabama, and while I was there, I mean, we took a course at the University of Ibadan on how to um on research method or something. But at that point, we weren't writing any papers, nothing like that. Even my undergrad thesis was just, me just using my residual kind of knowledge to just write something. I didn't really know what I was supposed to work on. So at the University of Alabama, but I remember then that one of our teachers, if you know Frau Schliemann, there's something that she used to say so much that Michael started to repeat it after her, which is versus deine These. She's always saying, what's your thesis? So it was so unfamiliar to us because we're like, what does it mean? Like you're asking us to write. So she gives us like work to write like short papers, maybe 1 page, 2 page. But nobody really understood what she meant by what's the thesis of your paper, like what's the argument. I never even bothered to like Google and check on all of that. So when I went to Alabama for my master's degree, that question just kept coming in like from different angles. My professor's saying, "Oh, but what's the argument? What's your argument?" And I'm like, "What's your argument mean?" Because we learned to write more expositorily than agitatively. So when we're writing, we're shining light on something. We're not trying to argue out a thesis. So arguments, we are just writing expositorily to kind of share knowledge about something. So that was the kind of writing that I still ended up with. But along the line, so of course in Alabama, I wouldn't say I was writing very good papers, but because I kind of I'm a fairly good writer, so I could write well, but I wasn't like really proposing an argument and trying to argue out something. So by the time I got to Stanford, I think after my first year, where I had to write a lot of papers and get like some low grades, some mid-range grades, I started to realize I think there's something, and they keep saying it, but because when you don't know something, even if 10,000 people say it beside you, it's just like fly by your ears. But I just kept on realizing that, wait, there's something these people keep saying. Like whenever they say I missed something in this paper, they keep pointing to this same thing. So I think it was not even until my second year when I submitted my qualifying paper and I had to go rewrite it that I realized that, wait, I think I understand what's missing now. Like there is no, I'm not telling them what the argument in this paper is. I'm just writing. So to kind of restructure my qualifying paper, I had to first of all look for the arguments that I was presenting and then say, okay, in this paper, I argued that. And that was very unfamiliar to me because naturally I don't really like to argue. My style of communicating is always expository, just to share knowledge. Yeah. Yeah, I do not like arguments. And funny enough, now that has made me to just become so argumentative because now I'm so used to that stuff. Oh, yeah, I'm so used to that stuff writing now that whenever someone is talking, I'm like, wait, you're just going here and here and here. What is the thesis of your arguments? And what's the thesis of your conversation? That has become a part of me now. But that was until my second year in Stanford before I even figured this out. And then it was in my third year that I finally wrote a paper that was outstanding, and I felt, oh, this is like good enough quality for someone that is a PhD student. So I didn't come into Stanford like being this great researcher. Of course, I had worked in a lot of like research organizations. I'd contributed to writing some papers, but I wasn't like independently good enough to write a paper until like my third year in Stanford. So that's the was a question answered, or did you want
Yeah,
me
yeah.
to?
Well, this is really super exciting to me because I always believe that Gift. Okay, so for those who don't know Gift, Gift graduated like You graduated best graduating student in UI, right?
No.
Or
Was
department, right?
yeah, in the department.
And then even in Alabama, you graduated with a 4 point what 9.
Zero. Yeah, no, 4.0 over 4.0. Yeah.
What are we talking about? And you're saying you were no, but I see like I just like what? It's just exceptional to me.
Yeah, that's
But
why I needed to share
you
this
answered
fact.
you answered my question, and then but additionally, because I used to think that okay, you were always good, but from what you just said now, it's still you came up with this aspect of what is your thesis, and then or what's your argument, and I think I had the same experience here at the University of Greifswald, where my professors asked me, okay, yeah, tomorrow you have a lot of framework, but what are you trying to say? And I'm like, oh my God, what I've written a page
Yeah,
for a 25 page uh
yeah.
work
Articles. Yeah.
article. I'm writing 38, and then I'm like, can't you see what I've written? I'm like,
Yeah.
look at the effort I've put into this
Yeah.
work, and then it's like it's not about the magnitude or the volume
Yeah.
of what you've written. It's the quality of what
Yeah.
you've written, and then I think it's something a whole lot of people would need to learn. So
Yeah.
this leads me to the next question. So tell me, for budding researchers or struggling researchers, what would your strategy for them be like for someone who is really really just lost, in research, especially when you're on a scholarship, and then you got the scholarship based on what the previous knowledge you had from coming
Yeah.
back from your own from University of Ibadan, or coming from University of Alabama. You are like, okay, so I am coming with that knowledge, and this knowledge is not enough to take you to the next level. So what I'd like the practical steps you would want to, from your own experience, practical steps that worked for you, that you could say that, okay, these are the things I would really want to set up as a legacy for whoever is going to follow through this path. Yes.
So there are different ways to approach writing in like research in academia. But one thing is that you have to first of all, I feel like if how do I say this now? So for someone like me, if I was listening to this like podcast later, I'm still going to feel like, well, what are they talking about? If I don't, if I still like put pen to paper to understand even writing in general. So you have to have even tried writing some things that you then feel like, oh, maybe it wasn't accepted by this publication organization or something like that. But also when I wrote some articles or some essays in Stanford, my supervisor was like, maybe you have a different style of writing, but it's not like academic focused or oriented. So it's not like every other kind of writing is wrong. It's just that academic writing is so specific. It has to look a certain way because they're trying to, convey information, and you have to do it so carefully that you're not like just overburdening your audience with a lot of things.
Too much
Yeah,
information, and
exactly.
then not
And
saying
exactly, and then
anything.
you're able to pass the information successfully. Yeah. So I would say the first thing to do is when you've recognized that, oh, I think I have this problem with my papers as well. It's always just disorganized, and then there is no like thesis, there's no central focus, and I'm just writing about everything I know on this topic. Then that's good. That means you have identified that there's a problem, and now this podcast or this interview can then really make sense to you. So if you've gotten to that stage, and the first thing I would say to ask yourself is, what is the argument I'm really trying to put forward? Because without that argument, how do you even know where to research, what to read, where to even for the information that you're trying to you have to, for every topic you want to write, you probably will need to read more about it, even if you already know a lot. So I think, but in some cases you might also start by reading and then find a question, and then you want to answer the question. So there are like different ways to approach research. Sometimes you can even just write, like we just expositorily just write all the 40 pages, and then eventually you're like, oh wait, I've seen an overarching question that I can use to tie all of this together, and then you bring the question forward and then begin to answer it with the 40 page of work that you have. So typically for like in academic research, they typically wanted to have that strong, so what a thesis is just like a strong compelling statement that you're about to you're about to kind of figure out. In fact, you don't even need to have an answer. You just want to show say something about this question. It could be that this question is unanswerable, but you have to lay down the facts, evidence is in the, however, like whatever field you are. And you can even use that to say, oh, based on all of this that I've shown you, this question is unanswerable. Or you're trying to say, okay, this is the answer to this question. This is why this is happening this way. And then you are going to show them through all of the books you've read, all the secondary articles, primary sources, and all of that to show, oh, this is why I'm saying this. This is why I'm standing on this fact. So once you have that, like compelling, and it's typically like one sentence. It could be like just 5 words. Today I'm arguing that immigration is bad for Africa, period. And then you want to then argue why is immigration bad for Africa. So let's say we are dealing with this topic, for example, immigration is bad for Africa. That's your thesis. And then sometimes people do it at the very end of the introduction, or you do it like maybe in the first paragraph of the introduction, you put it at the very end of the first paragraph, because it has to be something that the reader is quick to identify, quick to notice, so that from there, their reading is guided. So you want to say, oh, immigration is not a new phenomenon. People have been immigrating both within Africa and outside of Africa. In 2025, immigration rates from Africa to Europe maybe tripled by this number or this percentage, and people coming into Africa from other countries also tripled by this number. However, as a result of that, more African youth are beginning to reject or accept this bad something, or maybe they're beginning to lose their jobs. And because of this paper argues that immigration is bad for Africa, full stop. And then you then say, okay, this is how I want to section my paper. Organizationally, the first section opens up the history of immigration even broader to show how immigration has always been successful or always been good for Africa or has never been good for Africa. And then the second section shows how what other countries benefit when Africans immigrate to their own countries. And then in the third section, I will show you the outline to show you how immigration has continually maybe ridding Africa of its resources. And then from 20, you can tell them maybe from 2025 research, you don't have to even go fully, you can just like give a synopsis and say from 2000 to 2025, immigration has continually eaten at the root of our maybe unity. And then in the last section, I give you a conclusion to once again show that immigration is bad for Africa. So it's like a debate that it's like you're going on a debate with your opposing team, and the microphone. And then so that's why you have to read both people that support you and people that are against people, because most of the time you're not the first person to think about an idea. There are people who have spoken about, and that's also another point of research. You might be trying to fill a gap. So some people have spoken about this, they've spoken about that, but you want to bring in this new perspective. So you want to say, okay, I've read. So when you're debating, like the way they taught us, you're going to say, oh, my opposing partner said this and this and this, but I'm going to then show you why this and this and this might be wrong, or they're seeing this from another perspective that they've not really like considered my own stance. And that's why I'm introducing this to you. And then you now say, even this person agrees with me that immigration. So, you're trying to bring in people that are against you, people that are for you, because it's a research, like people are supposedly depending on your knowledge about this thing. And there's like sort of like scholar integrity that they expect that what you're writing is research, is fact-based, is evidence-based, like you're not just like giving your opinion, no matter how unpopular it is. Once you have carried out your research and you have seen the data for yourself, trust me, not so many people conduct research. Many people rely on research of the few people in academia to for truth and all of that. People don't really have the time that we do. Not that we have the time, but like that's the work we do, so we don't have a choice.
Exactly.
Yeah. So they rely on you. So that's why misinformation is a big, like, it really gets me so angry. I don't even know why. I know why I get so angry is because I've seen how misinformation it's like a disease. Because if people trust me, for example, to carry out research, and I push my bias that is based on unfounded or unsubstantiated opinion, they trust me, so that's why they believe it. And now I've poisoned the minds of like 50,000 people because of my research that was not well done. Then imagine in a society where we just have people pushing out a lot of like misinformed like essays and all of that. So yeah, basically that's the framework of like conducting a good research.
Thank you very much.
I forgot to add something. So of course, when I don't know if the question is going to come later, but when you're conducting your research, that's you also have to use trusted sources, trusted sites, journals, and all of that's why peer-reviewed research is important. Because so imagine I'm a kind of in I'm not in academia, nothing. I'm just like an opinion giver on a podcast, or I have like 1 million followers on Twitter, and then I write Substack. Nobody reviews a Substack to check whether the information is accurate or not. I can just say, I can tell you, oh, the Antichrist is coming on August 10, 2024. And then I post, I just,
You're
I just
referring to a post, right? I see. I
well,
know.
yeah, and then I just like give you like muddled up this and that. Sometimes I might even like squeeze in some truth here and there and just muddle up some things for you. And then you say because of that you have like conducted. Nobody reviewed this. Nobody verified it. When the first time I finally published like a policy brief, it went through like 10 different stages of editing because each and every link I put there had to be verified. The number I said had to be cross-checked. If I say 60 million people did this, they had to go check, is it 60 million? Like if I say this law was passed in this year, they had to go cross-check, was the law passed in this year? So that's the importance of having a peer-reviewed article. It shows that other people have verified the information that you're trying to pass across and they've seen it to be true. So it is accepted for publication. Wow. So it's not just, oh yeah, I did research, I read somebody's Substack, I read somebody's Medium article. In fact, even some papers that are also published, not even on Medium or Substack, even some papers are actually not peer reviewed because there are some shady journals that we have and they don't really like do all of, they just accept the money and publish a paper. So we just, as people in academia, we have to be very careful where we get our information from so that when we are presenting it, we are not misinforming people.
Well, you answered some of the questions because I wanted you to talk about peer review, but you already give an example and that's cleared that question. And then what's the difference between Substack and then peer review for those who are listening? Can you give us?
So Substack is majorly opinion. Research is not your opinion. Research can be informed by an opinion you hold, but that's not where it ends. You start with the opinion. That's why that's your thesis. And then you look for sources that can back it up. And if you believe that the sky is green, for example, and then you read 50,000 articles, nobody's telling you the sky is green. How do you want to back that? How do you want to back it up then? Like, so there's some things that obviously you might have to argue a bit stronger if you are like maybe more convinced. Some things in the humanities, for example, it cannot be proved by, like 1 + 1 is not always 2. But so you can't just like make claims. So people confuse research as just people are just making claims. People are just giving opinions. These are not opinions anymore. These are now researched, evidence-backed data they can actually quote and it will be true. So that's that's the difference between peer-reviewed like publications and a Substack like opinion kind of post. Yeah.
Great. Thank you so much.
Substack, though, people have good some Substack or Medium articles are like well researched. They just don't want to go through the stress of publication. They research very well. They add their links, in fact, where they got their information from. And if you go over it, you say, oh yeah, this person has done their research. So it's also not like bad to do that.
Great. So I have 2 questions, maybe. So you mentioned writing. You at the beginning of this segment of the question and answer. So you said for people who have found out that their writing isn't so organized, they can. I mean that's what your advice focused on. Now, but for those who, I have 2 questions. For those who are on one side, they know they can do it, or do you think anyone can be a good writer? That's one. And how do you come from a non-writer to a good writer or a great writer? That's one side. Then on the other side, you mentioned the fact that there is always this question coming, and I think that's you pointed it out later, saying it's the research gap, but you just went over it briefly, but I picked it. So now I want to ask, so first, how do you come from a non-writer to a great writer? That's one. And secondly, how do you find your research gap? Because you have to read a lot of articles and then you need to juxtapose your ideas, your findings, and then, you have to be finding guys who are behind you and then guys who are saying that it's a lie. No, it's not true. And then your opponents. So first of all, tell us how to be how to go from zero to hero in writing, and then how to spot research gaps, basically. And then
Okay, so to the first question, that's very tricky. So can anybody be a good writer? Probably. Yeah, I can't give a definitive answer, but probably you have to maybe enjoy writing, first of all. I know people that don't even like, they can't even write more than like one WhatsApp post in like a year, and that's it, because that's even like too much for them. So I think if you are already like, you already write some things here and there, then you probably have you probably have the motivation to write, and you can probably write more. So I think for something like that, it can be good writers. So, but if you don't have the like motivation to write, then I don't think you're ever going to be a good writer. It's just like I don't have the motivation to play golf, so I don't know. I probably maybe can be a good golfer, but I'm not going to do it anyway. But for people that already are interested in writing, they already write like here and there, something here, something there. I think there are the chances of being a good writer. But how do you go from good writer to great writer? You have to read. I don't think there's any other way. I don't think there's a shortcut. I don't think there's some magic book you can like that can teach.
Can I also say something?
Yeah.
I wanted to also say that for those who can't write, could it also be a factor of them not reading? Maybe.
Possibly. Yeah. Possibly. I know just a few number of people who I know were very like my friends that I kind of went to school with, grew up with, and all of that were quite voracious readers. Or maybe I thought they were. I used to read a lot as a child. And of course, I'll get books from my friends because I wasn't buying them. And I know them to be good readers as well, but I'm not like I don't see them writing now. So it's possible that you read a lot as a child, but reading was a passion, not writing. Yeah. Or to be a writer, I think there's something that happens when you read. When you kind of are a writer, when you read, it just kind of opens your mind. You're like, oh wow, I like the way this person made this argument, or see the way they just twisted this here and then to arrive at this conclusion. So those were the things that actually used to make me excited when I was reading. Like apart from the plot, I was just my brain was just like, oh, this is a good way to write. I'm going to include this in my next write-up. So those things really like it's like if you're already a writer and you're reading, then it's like it's like a two-way something that's happening in your head. So I think if you probably read a lot, you probably have it in you to be a good writer. But how do you go from being zero to a hero writer? Then you probably just have to read more, and then the more you read, let it inform how you write. You don't have to copy someone's style and say, "Oh, this is like the only way to write." You don't have to like. You can look inward and say, "Okay, how do I like when I speak, for example? How do I speak? How do I motivate people? How do I argue? How do I encourage them? Like, what's my method of speaking? Is it a convincing way? Am I just like a contrarian? There are so many different ways that people join conversations. So even from there, you could find your writing voice, even just from how you speak. And then from there, you can begin to write, but you just have to write. Like the way real authors will tell you, oh, you just have to write something. You have to write a page, exactly 2 pages one day. And then start with the simpler topics. Start with something as easy as maybe how much you love your favorite food, for example, or your favorite outfits. Just start with, you don't have to start with like what's the economic situation of Africa post-independence. No, you can start with like anything, or the noise by your window and how it wakes you up every morning. And then when you wake up every morning, you have to then work, because you can start with the simplest things, but you just have to write something. That's what I would say.
Then the research gap.
Okay, and the research gap. Yeah, thank you. To me, that's still like a very difficult question for me to answer, because so many things things inform us in a way, like shape our opinions, provide us with knowledge. And I think that just in the middle of listening to so many things, of hearing so many conversations, of reading so many books, you might begin to find out, oh, like nobody's really speaking on this question. Yeah, it might be hard to find that nobody's speaking on that topic, but the question that you feel like, so if you have read a lot, for example, you eventually say, wait, all of you are like, you are saying something, but you're missing this
direction.
Exactly, yeah, but you're missing this thing. It's sometimes very hard, because topics might be very similar, but it doesn't mean the question that is being answered in each article, each publication is the same. So I think it's possible that you mistakenly write somebody's thesis and you think it's a brand new thesis that you're formulating. It's very possible. That's why you need to read more in the field that you want to write about. So if I want to write about spirituality in Nigeria, for example, I'm not going to go and start reading about maybe migration to find a research gap. I have to read about from like professors of like religious studies and see what they've written and see, especially in the question I want to answer, yes, but also just kind of more broadly to see what the discussion is in this field. So that's why it's so like detailed, so careful, because you are not trying to just bubble the crowd. So you have to read, and then when you get the broader overview, you can then narrow it down and go to the question you're trying to answer and see what they've written about it, and see if that question that has been plaguing your own mind has been asked in that way. So somebody can try to answer your question, but maybe in another manner. Or has it been asked way? Because so see these very two different questions. I can say Nigeria needs to focus on education. Like I say, in this paper, I argue that Nigeria needs to focus on education in order to better the future of the youth. In this other paper, somebody can say, I'm arguing that Nigeria predominantly should focus on just education to make the future better for Nigerians. So in these two exactly very similar papers, this person is saying education is needed. I'm saying the only thing that can work in Nigeria is to focus on education. So you can see that they're very similar, but and they might be, you might do like similar like background study and all of that, but the answer to the questions would be very different. Because while this person is arguing education is okay, good to focus on, I'm saying that's the only thing you can focus on. And I have to argue why you shouldn't focus on medicine, healthcare, finance. You have to just focus on education. So the topics, the argument might sound similar, but the argument that you're bringing forward, the content of your research is ultimately different. So that's why you kind of have to read and see what has been done in your field to be able to answer and find your research gap.
Wow, thank you so much. Wow, I just checked the time and then I'm like,
yeah, I'm surprised as well.
So, the last thing I would want to say is that so people think A students are like they have two heads. I don't know. So what's do you also have, you already shared your times or instances where you failed, and I was surprised.
Yeah.
But
I feel it.
but so tell us about times when you failed, and
Yeah.
then how did you handle it? How did
Yeah.
you? Because I don't
So
believe you guys fail. I mean, your instruments.
yeah, I know people that actually every year, let me say I achieve only like two major things that I set out to achieve out of maybe like 10. It's just that I have the goals I set are quite very are quite high. So when I achieve them, it's like, oh my God, this person is doing great things. But like there were other things that I wanted to achieve as well that I couldn't achieve. So I've had experiences with failure, not so many because I mean, I have not had so many experiences with failure. I'm not trying to brag, but it's just the reality. I mean, field, like my field is academia. I've always been a very, very like exceptional student from when I was a child. So academia is quite easy for me. It's just the slips here and there, or maybe me not taking a course very seriously. And then I get what I'm calling failure is like a B plus. I don't like having B's. So B's. Yeah. So those
Okay, it's good to hear. Yeah.
I don't think I've never had any C in like this thing. I think I had C's in UI, but I've never had any C in the US, for example. So what I call failure is just like having B's because, and most of the time it's just because of my negligence. So but it was happening because I didn't understand how I was supposed to write a paper. And then later it just started happening. It's not like it started happening. I had one more B even after I knew I was writing a paper because my brain was like done with like attending classes. I just felt too old to be in school. Yeah. So I've definitely experienced failure. There are two ways I handle it. If it's something I really want, I go back and I sit tight and I focus on it because I must achieve this thing and I really want this thing because I have a goal in mind. I have like a dream like that I want to accomplish, and this will help me accomplish that dream. So I go back, I look at I listen to advice, criticisms, all of that, and I see how I can apply it if it's useful. And one that is not useful because some people just want to insult you, so I discard it. And then the other time I fail is when I don't really care. So I'm like, this is I failed, but what do I want to do about this? Nothing. Okay, I move on. So you can't like sit and mope on every failure. You have to know, does this really, I mean, everything that you probably set out to do is probably good for you to accomplish, but not every one of them is so ultimately significant for the vision you have in mind for yourself. So in some cases, I go back, sit tight, rewrite. In some cases, I'm like, this is done. I'm never going back to this anymore. Like, I'm okay with whatever I have. So those are the two different ways that I approach feeling.
Wow, great, great. So, so for you now, how, thanks for that. And then
Yeah.
for you, do you see your, I mean, another one question, last question I would want to ask is about your everyday life. Like, so
Hmm.
people would think maybe you guys are so always just reading and nerdy and doing everything. So what what does your day look like? I
Yeah.
mean, as a scholar, as a scholar, you have specific aspects of your day where you say, for out of 24 hours, I'm reading for 20 hours and sleeping for 2 hours, and then like,
Well, I'm sorry, but I'm not Albert Einstein. I'm sorry to disappoint. But so I think it's just the same way. So now that I'm doing my PhD and I'm in school, I think the same way it would be for someone that is working like a corporate job, for example. My work is always at the back of my mind.
hmm,
I always think, so if I join a conversation, for example, and I hear something that could add to my research, my brain kind of opens up to absorb that information. Everything I'm doing, I'm always thinking, oh my God, I need to write my dissertation. I need to find this data that I'm looking for. I need to make sure that I'm accumulating a lot of like knowledge to be able to give proper to be able to write a proper paper. But I don't wake up and say, some people do that, especially here at Stanford. People have like very strict, routine that they wake up to and do every day. But that doesn't really work for me. So I really like to like find my own path. I'm very stubborn about that. Like I don't care if everybody is supposed to do this. I'm going to find my own path. And
hmm,
then if the path that works for me is the general path, then I'm not like a contrarian, for example. I just want to know what works for me and then I will take it, even if it's the general path. But I realize that I have a strict routine when I feel like I'm lagging behind and I need to catch up and I need to send something, I need to submit something. I'm going to have a strict routine about that. So I'll wake up, for example, on the days when I really, really I wasn't even really lagging behind. I just like had like a lot of work to do with a very limited amount of time. I wake up, go to the library from like 12, actually like maybe 11 after eating breakfast and all of that. 11, and then sometimes I get home by 8 p.m. And it's like I'm like 90% of the time I'm focused, like 8 hours of strict focus, 9 hours of just like strictly focusing on what I have to do. But that's my nature because I think like it's just my nature, maybe some neurologic something, I don't know. But when I sit, I'm able to like fully focus. I can't even lock myself in a room, like, and it's like just me, like somewhere like a jail, like a cell, for example. I don't feel, some people don't like it, some people feel kind of overwhelmed.
hmm,
But when I'm focusing on something, my brain is able to like just sit and focus and like forget that everything other thing is existing.
around
And then
you.
for 9 hours, yeah, exactly. For like 9 hours, 8 hours, I can go as much as that and just like focus on my work, take like maybe just 30 minutes break. And then I'm even trying to say, oh my God, like time is up, and I've not done a lot. So it doesn't, and I can still go the next day and continue until I've achieved that goal I want to accomplish. So I have like a very different style of reading. It's not the, oh, wake up every day at 8 a.m. and then drink a cup of coffee and then to go for a run and then go to the library. No, that's not my life. But when I have work to do, then I know it's time to be strict. But when I have a lot of time, I can maybe add one sentence to my dissertation or my research paper today. Tomorrow I can add like 5 pages. It just depends on, yeah, on how it works for me.
Good. And and finally, what advice would you like to give to maybe upcoming uh, academia enthusiasts or
Yeah.
coming up in the academia, especially for some of the current undergraduates who will be watching this video?
Yeah.
What,
So, yeah. So I'll say if you really enjoy academia, then please come into the space. But please don't fall for conspiracy theories. Like the the weight of informing the world kind of lies on our,
hmm,
the weight of making sure that we are responsible for misleading the crowd lies on our shoulder. So don't contribute to that misinformation that's in the world. Try as much as possible. Sometimes it's inevitable. You might even think you're actually, researching and you don't know that these people have like filled their articles with bias and all of that. So
hmm,
that happens. But
yeah,
try as much as possible on your own end not to spread more misinformation in the world. Like I feel like a lot of issues, problems that happens in the world is just the pen is mightier than the sword, like they say. People have written some things, those things are very dangerous. Those things have corrupted people's minds, and then it makes them act a certain way. So as much as possible, please, when you come into academia, try as much as possible to not add to the misinformation in the world.
Thank you so much, Gift.
Yeah. Thank you, Tommy, for the good
We're
interview.
going to wrap it up for today.
Yeah.
Let me just stop.